If you've been following the transfer news over the last sort of year, 18 months, you may have noticed something pretty peculiar. And no, I'm not talking about the moves to Saudi Arabia and players going to the MLS, but I'm talking about the big name players that are going to Mexico. Is Mexico becoming the new retirement home for footballers? Today, we're going to look at what the biggest appeals are for players going to Mexico and why we've seen this influx of players moving from Europe to Mexico in the last 12 to 18 months. And before we dive deeper into why players are leaving Europe and going to Mexico, we need to start by saying it's not a truly foreign concept. I mean, Ronaldinho did it in 2015 when he guided Querétaro, one of Mexico's lesser known names, to a Liga MX final. And Dani Alves, put on the blue and gold of Pumas in 2022. But something about right now, it just feels different. Right now, we're seeing more players head from Europe to Mexico than ever before. It's not just players heading into the twilight years of their career, but it's also players that are capable of competing at a very high level. So to break it all down, I've put together this beautiful graph that I'm sure you're all loving right now. And basically what it shows is the number of players that have moved from the top leagues in Europe to Mexico over the last sort of 5 years. So if you start with the 2020-21 season, okay, it was impacted by COVID, so you do have to take that into account. But there was just 3 players that left a top league in Europe to go to Mexico. And then when you look at the year after that, it rose to 5. So still not a big number. But the sort of biggest name in that was Florian Thauvin going from France to join Tigres. And then fast forward to the 2023-2024 season, and that number rises significantly all the way up to 14 signings. That's 14 players going from a big club, a big league in Europe, to head to Mexico. And then looking at the season just gone, the 2024-2025 season, and it goes up again to 15 players that have left Europe's elite leagues like the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, and so many more around Europe to join clubs in Mexico. And then bang, you're back with me. I hope you enjoyed my creative juices in full flow. But to look at some of the players that have moved from Europe to Mexico, we're talking about the legendary Sergio Ramos. Okay, he is 38, but he's at Monterrey and he's playing a big role. One of my personal favorites, James Rodriguez at León, but we're also looking at players like Paulinho, who left Sporting Lisbon to play for Toluca, Lucas Ocampos, Sergio Canales, Oliver Torres, the trio that are with Sergio Ramos at Monterrey. But then we're looking at players that have already signed for next season to join top clubs in Mexico, like Angel Correa from Atletico Madrid. He's decided that he wants to join the other half of Monterrey with Tigres. And then whilst Aaron Ramsey is the one that blew my mind, I'm sure it blew a lot of your minds because he's kind of seemingly risen from the ashes. So the ultimate question is, what has changed? Why has Liga MX suddenly become a dream destination for so many players? A lot of the names that I've just mentioned were targets for MLS clubs. They were targets for Saudi clubs. But why have they rejected those offers and head to Mexico instead? The first thing we need to say is that, let's not kid ourselves, money talks. And Liga MX clubs can offer serious wages. Maybe not to the same level as Saudi clubs, but definitely competitive with MLS sides and beyond. I mean, some of the contracts that they're offering players is absolutely unbelievable. Look at what they've offered Sergio Ramos. We're talking about a $4 million contract for just 6 months of football, other perks in that. So he gets to choose which games he plays in. He will get bonuses if they win the league. Obviously, they didn't, but if he stays on, that bonus stays alive. If they won the CONCACAF Champions Cup, the same situation. If they somehow magically win the FIFA Club World Cup as well. But then there's other perks as well to the deal. So he will get paid per game that he plays in the FIFA Club World Cup. He gets a sort of 2% commission on all shirt sales with his name on the back. He even gets his own personal driver. And then looking at James Rodriguez's deal at León, it's even crazier. I mean, we're talking about up to $7 million, including bonuses. He gets up to 14 security guards. I'm not too sure how accurate that one is, but if that's true, that's crazy. The club has provided him with a house, and they've even made a promise to James Rodriguez that they will sign better players to help him. I mean, it sounds nice, right? I don't know what the Saudi and the MLS clubs would be offering these players, but the perks alone sound absolutely incredible. Another big factor for players joining the Liga MX, as you can make the same argument for the MLS and the Saudi leagues, is, as we've talked about, the FIFA Club World Cup. Okay, that dream went downhill pretty quickly for James Rodriguez as his Leon side were kicked out of the competition due to dual ownership problems with Pachuca, but the appeal is clear. Big money, bigger exposure. But the appeal of playing in Mexico isn't just about the money, it isn't just about the FIFA Club World Cup, because the league itself is competitive. Since 2015, there's been 10 different league winners. I mean, the competition as a whole is intense. The playoff dynamic is just crazy. And every team is desperately trying to knock Club America off their porch after their recent success. But here's something that people may overlook. Playing in Mexico isn't just about trying to win the Liga MX, but also trying to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup, the token for teams getting into the FIFA Club World Cup. And whilst we're talking about continental football, one of the personal reasons why I think people are going to Mexico, whilst big name players are going to Mexico, is indirectly to do with the MLS. We're seeing so many big names hitting a certain point in their career and they're just fleeing off to the MLS. And because we have the Leagues Cup, we have the CONCACAF Champions Cup, where Liga MX sides are directly playing against MLS sides, I think that's a reason why certain players are choosing to go to Mexico instead of going to the MLS. Okay, yeah, sure, they play in different leagues. You have the MLS, you have the Liga MX, but now we have the Leagues Cup. It's a direct competition between teams from both leagues. You have the CONCACAF Champions Cup. There's more opportunities for teams from both leagues to play against each other. And look, you can make your own mind up whether you like the Leagues Cup or if you don't like it. For me personally, I'll just say I'm not a massive fan of it, but it adds fuel to the fire anytime that teams from the MLS and Liga MX play against each other. And big names, I think personally, they want to be a part of that. And look, let's talk about the culture of Mexican football. It's a football mad country. The stadiums, the fans, the atmospheres. I completely understand why players would want to go to Mexico because it's the type of experience that I personally don't think you can quite get in the MLS or in Saudi Arabia. And when you look at the overall lifestyle that players can have by moving to Mexico, I mean, it's hard to complain about Mexican food, the beaches, the overall lifestyle. The overall living costs in Mexico are significantly lower than what they are in the US, Canada, Saudi Arabia. So when you put all of that together, it becomes an even more appealing option for players wanting to make the most of their final sort of big paychecks. And look, we have to be objective when we're talking about players going to Mexico because there are a lot of problems with Mexican football. If you are interested into a deeper dive for what those problems are, I've made a few videos for you to go and have a look at. But to summarize those points, in the last 10 years, Mexican clubs have been removed from the Copa Libertadores. They no longer have a relegation or promotion system, and they've completely scrapped the Copa MX. So there's a lot of problems that have left fans feeling on edge. But the caveat is that in the last couple of years, they've brought in a lot of high quality players. And the overall quality within Mexico, I think, is slowly increasing. So it is a league where you can still compete, but there are a lot of red flags too. Is the Liga MX becoming the new luxurious home for players leaving Europe? Maybe. But there's good reason because it's a league that can still challenge, it can still inspire players and allow them to feel the passion for the game that made them fall in love with football in the first place. So what do you think, guys? Is the Liga MX building something special or is it just yet another retirement home? As always, make sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, peace out.